If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time. And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to sit behind in this new We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This is Freedom 7. The fuel is go 1.2 G. Cabin at 14 psi. Oxygen is go.
Operating. We're underway.
It's been 10 years since I wrote Reentry, a spaceflight simulator's first line of code. I was spending as many evenings as I could over at our little apartment in Seattle, or in the library of the University of Washington, trying to learn the math and figure out what it would take to build a simple space exploration game. It was going to be a first-person immersive game with full 3D virtual cockpits. I wanted to let you have the ability to press all of the buttons, and I wanted it to be based on realistic procedures. It shouldn't go too deep on systems, however. It should be accessible for many, and if you wish to just spend an hour to venture into orbit to observe Earth, you should be able to do so. So I sat down and started to read the thick NASA manuals for the Mercury, Gemini, Command Module, and the Lunar Module spacecraft, and I quickly realized that creating something like this would be quite hard. The math was brutal, the distances were too large to fit in the Unity game engine, the vehicles were too complex, where thousands of buttons and switches had to be interactable, and hundreds of systems were to work together. I eventually figured out that I should probably start where NASA started, and just go with the historical sequence without worrying too much about what it would take to reach the moon and land on it, especially from a technical implementation. This way I could create a game where I saw how the real craft evolved from one to the next. In November 2015, Project Mercury was born, and about a year later, the first demo of the game where you could sit inside of the Mercury cockpit, reach orbit, and land was showcased in a video on YouTube. It was released as a free technical preview in November 2016. This was called the Technical Preview 1, or TP1, and here, in the TP1 trailer, you can see some of the game mechanics and how the first iterations of the game's user interface looked like. After solving the required orbital mechanics to reach orbit, I could start solving how to maneuver in space and perform a rendezvous with another vehicle. Technical Preview 2, or TP2, was released in September 2017 and was all about Project Gemini and dealing with the same problems they had to deal with in real life. This was so hard I was about to abandon the project and just stick with Project Mercury. However, at this point, the game started to draw some attention. Players willing to test the game volunteered. It was such an honor, and I tried to figure out what to call them. The most logical name would be test pilots. They were to play my interpretation and implementation of the spacecraft, and they flew like spacecraft wrapped with duct tape. It had to be test pilots. TP2 received great feedback and really boosted my motivation for the project. After taming rendezvous and flights in low Earth orbit, I started working on Apollo. Now this was a beast. I did know a few things from the craft before, and I knew how some of it were operated, but trying to implement this yourself was a whole new level. As Collins wrote in his book Carrying the Fire, the Gemini had been small, comparatively simple, and could almost be flown like a fighter. The Apollo, on the other hand, was too big, too heavy, and too complex to make sprintly maneuvers. Flying it was, as John Young described it, like driving an aircraft carrier with an outboard motor. And having to deal with this complexity from a game development perspective felt, to be honest, extremely overwhelming. At this point, I started to consider my various options about creating a community for the game, where I could discuss game development, share updates, but most importantly, receive input from Apollo experts scattered across the globe. And I wanted them to feel included in the way that I developed this project. I also started to discuss quite a lot with a guy named Peter Musgrave, who has a PhD in astrophysics and who is the author behind Gravity Engine, an engine that would help me solve some of the math needed for the complex maneuvers in the Apollo program. I kept pushing and eventually released the whole package as an early access title on Steam back in November 2018. At this point, a famous YouTuber named Scott Manley created a little video about Reentry. Not only was this one of my proudest moments, but this caused quite a lot of people to discover the game and also join the Discord and help out with the community and as test pilots, and to provide input and feedback to the development of this project. I have been spending quite a lot of time this year to prepare for the long overdue 1.0 release and calculate its launch window. The plan is that the currently running autumn sale will be the last sale before a 1.0 release in November 2025. This is 10 years after my first demo and 6 years since the Steam Early Access release. Personally, this is a huge milestone, and the current bits by far exceeds the initial expectation and scope I had for the project. A big thanks to all of you who have been helping me as test pilots, or as players who wanted to help me improve the game in one way or another, or as community members helping each other out. Some of you have been with me since the first demo was released, others for years, and some briefly. But you have all been part of my journey to make it possible to experience parts of human spaceflight on your PC, and for that, I thank you.
So this is Friendship 7, have a beautiful view of the African coast, both in the scope and out the window. Out the window is by far the best view.
I have received messages from those who were part of the program, from those who watched the lunar landing live on TV. I've seen Walter Cunningham play the game, and I've discussed the command module and the lunar module with Fred Hayes, received photos of a mock-up spacecraft with a dad and his kids on their backs looking up at Reentry running on a monitor, seen community members create devices and items for the game, and read heartfelt messages from those who wanted to be an astronaut but never got to become one. All of this has made this currently 10-year-long project worthwhile. Defining what 1.0 is on a title like this has been brutal. This game will never be complete. There will always be something that should be added, fixed, or tuned. 1.0 is, as I have mentioned before, just a new milestone, a new beginning. This is why I initially set the feature scope of 1.0 to be the core systems, or the minimum level required for a Mercury flight to orbit, a Gemini rendezvous mission to Agena, and a lunar landing mission in Apollo. All rather large tasks by themselves, but a foundation I can build upon towards 2.0. After 1.0, I aim to continue improving existing systems, as well as adding more systems outside of this minimal or core scope. You will see computers continue to evolve, more programs getting added, additional systems being implemented, and some existing systems getting more detailed. The goal is to get into a state where things evolve to become more and more correct related to realistic procedures. In addition, as you know, more focus will shift from core game mechanics and core features to expand the current alpha features of Reentry. These has all been research features and implementations with a post 1.0 scope. We will see that multiplayer modes such as the Mercury Control Center and the Apollo Mission Control module evolve beyond its current technical preview implementations. Gemini Co-op will enter its proper research stage, and the VR implementation will evolve from its current alpha level. The goal of Reentry was always to be a game that stays in a medium fidelity simulation, and instead of going super deep on one spacecraft, it aims to go wider and tries to let you experience the evolution of spacecraft, how they evolved from Mercury to the lunar landing and beyond. This is still a goal, and we have seen the Space Shuttle and Vostok being candidates for a DLC, or a Steam downloadable content. Nevertheless, the project is created by one person and will always be a bit rough around the edges. These will continue to be improved and smoothed out, but I have had to set a limit where I say, this is it. This is the absolute best I can do. I will keep doing it, but this is the threshold of the 1.0 release. It might not be enough for some of you, and it will be more than enough for others. But I can assure you that if I learn a new way to improve something, I will do it, just as I've been doing for the past 10 years. Going forward to the 1.0 release, I will continue to iron out quality of life issues, critical bugs, tuning and refining existing content. You will see the 1.0 versions of the manuals being released and refreshed, and additional checklists will be added to the in-game library. You can expect frequent but smaller patches as we get closer and closer to November 2025. I hope that this video was helpful and that it shed some light on some of my reasoning for this project and its 1.0 scope. Lastly, I want to thank you for being part of this 10-year-long project in one way or another to bring human spaceflight, even as a small little game on a PC that everyone can enjoy.
If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time. And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space. Go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they